Okay.
Okay, guys,
Well,
get
let's get
started.
yeah, we'll
I
get
think, yeah,
started on here.
yeah.
So here is today's agenda. Pretty straightforward stuff. I'm not gonna, go through each individual item. So let's just start with an introduction and some of our goals here for this specific training session. So we'll start with what has been drilled in your head here all day long, and maybe I can provide you with a slightly separate perspective, and that this is specifically how I talk about the Seceon Open Threat Management platform. First and foremost is that I think it's very important for people to understand that we have truly differentiated ourselves by developing the platform from its onset with the intent of having an all-in-one cybersecurity platform. If you look at organizations like Palo Alto, for example, they began as a firewall company. And they have acquired other companies over time and kind of cobbled things together in order to make, their security platform, which is a kind of a cobbled together set of duct tape and API calls to all the different solutions that they have acquired over the years. With Seceon, they began the development knowing that they had this all-in-one cybersecurity platform with the intent, and they had the foreknowledge to say that let's begin with, machine learning and deep learning and dynamic threat models that are specific to the cybersecurity industry. Understand, everybody talks about machine learning. Machine learning is best for well-defined tasks and structured and labeled data, whereas deep learning is best for complex tasks that require machines to make sense of unstructured data. So that's a big differentiator for us, that this is a component within the solution itself. And it's with this strong foundation that really enabled Seceon to build out a set of solutions and tools around that foundation, right? So these tools have really were really enabled by that foundation, right? Things like constant compliance monitoring and constant exposure management. These are very lofty things that require a great deal of context that is made possible through the foundation here, as I mentioned earlier. As we go through, the underlining messaging is that Seceon's platform is an ecosystem with a set of solution areas and tools that work in concert with one another through the foundation I spoke of in the previous slide. I submit to you that Seceon is the only platform that provides all the context needed to respond to any given threat or to best manage your cybersecurity posture proactively. When you're selling the solution, I suggest being more focused on the aspects of the solution that align with the role of the person that you're talking to. A business owner, for example, is not likely to have any interest in advanced alert triage. He's also probably not going to care about the advantages of collecting and analyzing flow data, for that matter. You want to learn how your prospect wants to incorporate cybersecurity into their business, right? If they don't have a team for cybersecurity, then show them how you are going to deliver value. Show them reports that they can expect to see that illustrate the value that you're going to be delivering for them in advance, of their cybersecurity posture, right, over time, and how you will be able to track their alignment to any given compliance that they might be bound to, for example. If they do have a cybersecurity team, then you want to focus on how you will work, as an extension of their team. As we move forward, the goals here are, pretty self-explanatory. We want you to be able to develop an understanding of the cybersecurity market. We want you to be able to align your messaging to the role of the person you are selling to, align with demonstration, and align your demonstrations with the person that you're talking to, their role and the responsibility of those roles. So your demonstration to a CEO or a CISO is going to be a lot different than it is for a cybersecurity practitioner or a SOC manager. And understand the preconceived notions that your prospects may have. Yesh did a phenomenal job going over that kind of stuff, and this might be some good baseline material to help support some of the things that Yesh was talking about. So now let's talk about the market landscape and competitive overview. There are a lot of competitors out there. This is only a partial list, right? And I'm sure that there are a few out there that people are like, oh, how come you don't have them in there? It's just there's an awful lot, right? When you are selling the solution, the one thing that I think that we really want to keep in mind is, you know, your ability to understand our competitors and what their value proposition is and where there are gaps within their solution itself. You need to be able to go through and identify landmines, right? You want to be able to ask them questions that will give them pause, that will make them want to think about the overall value that they're going to be getting in this next purchase that they have, right? Or how they can better derive positive outcomes for their business. One of the things that I like a lot is what's called command of the message. This is a sales technique that I'm a big believer in, and that is to use your knowledge to shape an initiative, right? You want to be able to highlight the importance of features and functionalities that are exclusive to the Seceon platform. Use questions um, to help them to determine how important something is on their own, right? You want to ask them about any given gaps in their security posture and how that might impact their business so that you can refer to it later, especially when you come around to the time of making a proposal. You want to talk to them about any solution areas within the Seceon platform that they will need to buy separately if they move forward with another competitor. Also, from that perspective, we want to make an effort to shape the initiative wherever possible. You want to look for any competitors' value propositions or some of the things that they consider to be differentiators in an RFP or in communications that they have with you, right? You want to listen for those triggers that says, they probably are working with Splunk, or they might be working with Arctic Wolf. But again, if you can get in front of that process and share with them some of the things that they should be considering to be important and why, based on the discovery of their business, that's where we are really going to be able to have an edge going into any sort of opportunity. Um, on this slide, we're just kind of reiterating the importance of customizing your approach for each and any of your prospects' unique needs and challenges, and guiding their priorities to best align with the Seceon platform. So here we talk about one of our biggest differentiators, and Yesh spoke about it some. Many of our competitors are pricing based on the amount of volume of data that they are ingesting, or the number of events per second that they are consuming if they're just focused on logs only and not including things like flow data. Seceon's asset-based pricing is a big differentiator because you have to understand that um, you know, if your pricing isn't predictable, then you're going to impact budgets, and this impacts their ability to be able to even propose new initiatives, right? Because their CFO wants to have that predictability for their budget. Understand that a lot of people are doing a lot of workarounds in order to be able to accommodate ingestion-based or storage-based pricing. And this, leads into a lot of different pitfalls. First and foremost, it creates gaps, right? If you're having to trim down the number of logs that you have, or trim down, how complete those logs are, this impacts your ability to be able to detect threats. It also impacts your ability to be able to report from a compliance perspective, which is to say nothing about impacting your, ability to, maintain a unified view, even from a systems management perspective, right? Which you need in order to be able to ensure the resilience of your organization, your continuing operations, so that you're not impacting the business with some sort of a shutdown. Um, Now, a lot of people are really proud of the workarounds that they did to you know, to you know, help approach this difficult situation. You want to remember that, and be able to position these things that you learn over time with executives to help them understand how all these workarounds are actually taking away time and impacting their operational efficiency as well. So from here, we'll just go through some of the competitive advantages. I'm not going to read through all of this stuff. The presentation will be available to you within our portal when we're done. And I'd also encourage you to find a way to be able to create these yourselves. I created this using Claude AI, where you can see the different categories across the top and where Seceon aligns with the competitors that I identified in the earlier slide. This is something that's going to be fairly dynamic. People are always coming out with new features and functionality, as is Seceon, and you want to make sure that those new features and functionalities are captured in your comparison, especially when we have something like breach and attack simulation, and some of the new features that are associated with agentic AI and what we're doing with RAG as well. These are things that need to be captured in your comparisons, but it's a good idea to know who your competitors are when you're going into an engagement and being able to find those gaps in order to be able to sell to them and help differentiate what Seceon has to offer. And it's not just about features and functionalities, it's also about the deployment and architecture of the solution. People are going to care how easy it is to maintain, how easy it is to keep it up and running, and how much ongoing maintenance you're going to need over time. And so this is a nice set of criteria that you could also incorporate into any sort of proposals for an RFP and the like. So from here, we'll talk about partner enablement and positioning strategy. And these days, I think that people are hearing about, mean time to detect and mean time to respond. Everybody has, a story around that. All of our vendors are talking about it in the market space today. They have very lofty claims in these areas. Recent research has found that economic buyers and even technical buyers are getting a little tired of this kind of messaging. What they want to know is how you're going to make their lives easier, and they want to know how you're going to help make them look good for choosing Seceon or for choosing you as an MSSP and the services that you have to offer, how you're going to support them and help them achieve their objectives. So the first kind of set of people that we're going to run into are business executives. If you look over these kind of needs and challenges or challenges that they face, they're very different from that of a cybersecurity practitioner, right? And so you want to be able to demonstrate things like our cybersecurity scorecard. You want to be able to show them things like our compliance reporting and how we can help them with that, how we can help them to manage to compliance in a very real real time way, right? One of the stories I like to tell about compliance also aligns very well with operations and policy management. I had a large enterprise that had a policy where folks are not allowed to have an extension running on their browser. And while they were threat hunting, they found that there was a user that was in violation of that policy. And that enabled them to uncover a drive-by that this end user was victim of and stop any sort of further proliferation of the threat through that drive-by that installed as an extension on their browser. So it's not just about compliance, but it's also a lot of violations in compliance or in policy can actually lead to uncovering an indicator of compromise and an actual threat. Other things that you can show over time include things like your cybersecurity score card over time. Again, the kind of things that executives are going to want to see in order to understand the value that you're delivering for their business. From a security practitioner's perspective, if you're talking to cybersecurity people, that's when you can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the solution itself. I mean, if you're engaging with a small business and you're just talking to the business owner, these are things that you may never even talk to them about because frankly, they just won't care, right? But cybersecurity practitioners, if you're dealing with a larger size enterprise, a mid to large size enterprise, and you need to work with, a cybersecurity team, it's very important that they understand how the solution is going to make their lives easier, right? Through things like the automated triage that we had a demonstration on earlier, or by looking at how they can use our AI piece to help with, how they go about remediating any specific incident, um, or even being able to understand the context behind an incident, and how you're going to be able to, again, act as an extension of their team itself. When you have been talking a lot about the stakeholders within a complex sale, and again, I just want to reiterate, it's important not to get into a deep dive with a CEO or a CFO about automated triage or the types of threats that we uncover. They want to know, how you're going to keep their business up and running, how you're going to help speed things like compliance reporting, um, things that align with their business itself. Whereas if you're talking with a CISO or a SOC manager or the like, then that's when you might want to dive into some of the areas or types of threats that they are most concerned about. Um, in prospecting, we use AI an awful lot. I like Claude AI. It's worth spending $20 a month to get a paid version where you can establish projects. Here you can see some of the projects that we had, and then to the right of that are a set of documents that I loaded into a knowledge base for that project to help guide the answers that I receive. So if I'm talking with an end user that's in the healthcare space, I might query and load all of our healthcare use cases and solution briefs into one of these projects, and then have it research authoritative sources on the web and correlate that with what's in this project in order to be able to have more focused content that's going to be more relevant for them. We did a campaign to healthcare organizations. We did some research into some pending compliances that are coming up for HIPAA, and we're able to reference those things very directly by loading an 80-page document, from our legislators that people are going to have to be concerned about, and that way we're aligning with them, we're aligning with their specific interests and their specific things that they relate to, in order to get their attention and be able to garner a trusted advisor kind of status with them. So you want to use the competitive landscape to help plant landmines for your competitors. You want to be able to use questions that are open-ended that you can also kind of follow on with to say, and how does that impact your business, right? And how does that impact your role? And how is resolving those problems going to be a benefit to the company, right? These are some of the most important things that I think we want to dive down into, because understand first and foremost, your prospects are doing all the research before they even talk to you, right? Before they even have an audience, they've done a ton of research. So the way that you, are going to differentiate yourself is by learning their business and learning how you're going to make their lives easier and being able to demonstrate that, right? I think that's about it. These are some of the unique strengths that we've been talking about all week or the last few days here in the innovation days. And hopefully you found this to be somewhat useful. And hopefully I didn't run through too quickly. Happy to answer any questions that you all might have. Thanks.